Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. So let me just tell you a quick story about me just so that we can be familiar and friendly. I was born Jacksonville, Florida, quickly moved when I was 2. By the way, I'm 50, so this will only take about 24 hours. Grew up in a lot of poverty. I grew up upside down, not physically, but I grew up upside down emotionally, relationally, spiritually, mentally. My world was completely upside down. And that created a lot of things in my life for years. What it has done in my life and career is it's taught me how to translate between two worlds. The world that is upside down, so you see everything upside down, which to you is completely right side up, as it was for me. I didn't know my world was upside down until somebody pointed it out to me. And then 15 years later, I was like, okay, you're probably right. My worldview, everything that I thought was up was down. What was healthy was unhealthy. What was good actually was bad or evil. What was evil or really bad was good. And I've learned how to heal in those areas significantly in order to do what I'm doing today. So I do one of two things every day in my life. Number one is I translate between the world that is upside down and the world that is right side up. So I make those connections and help people that don't know the language in either world communicate. And then I love to create, inside of that chaos between those two dimensions, I love to create, just pure creation. Now, I'm not an artist. I'm a social engineer. I think that working within community and providing systems leadership and working on systems with respect to how people connect, not so much on the technology side, because the one thing I know about IT, I was telling Bridget from Channel 13, everybody say hi to Bridget tonight. That was not enthusiastic, but it's okay. That the only thing I really know about technology is the phone I have in my pockets, and it's there. There you go. That's my entire IT world. But I do know human technologies, and I do know community technologies, and I've become versed in both those areas. So tonight I want to talk to you about chaos. I want to talk to you about the value of chaos. I'd like to talk in open dialogue with you tonight about if you have an idea to create chaos, how can you create chaos? Now, I'm not talking about being an idiot, right? So I'm not talking about doing idiotic things for idiotic reasons where you can, and let me define idiotic things. So things that don't connect. So if you're just creating chaos, that's what 2-year-olds do. So we're not talking about that either. But how do you, I'm sorry, did I offend anyone who has a 2-year-old? I've had many of them. My wife and I have had 5 sons, all out of the house. We have now 5 daughters-in-law and 10 grandchildren. So I'm associated pretty well with the 2-year-old thing, right? I thought I had 2-year-old, by the way, down pat until we got a girl, because I had 5 sons. And then we had a girl. And I said something, and then there was a nuclear blast. And then days later, when I regained my sight, I was able to ask my wife, what was that? And so I understand that world as well, only to the degree of getting out of the way of it. So I'm not talking about that kind of chaos. I'm talking about kind of creating chaos with respect to not having everything in order, but in fact starting with something that is completely out of order. And so there are a ton of people out in society like me. Right? You grew up in chaos, you grew up in a world that was completely upside down, and you've learned over the years how to saddle that and how to make that work for you at a fairly significant level with respect to community development. So I want to chat with you about some things that I believe that you and I can both dialogue about and things that I believe you can take out of here tonight. So that's a little bit about me. I will tell you a little bit about Cherry Street. Specifically, I want to talk to you about the Life Revitalization Center for like 2 minutes. So the Life Revitalization Center, by far, is my greatest thing that I've been involved in and the greatest thing that I've been able to engineer to date within my career that now spans about 38 years. And so the Life Revitalization Center is the reintroduction of adult vocational training and trade school training back into the Central City vocational trade school training, left Center City in 1991. We have lost 2 full generations of men and women that could have worked with their hands and now are not working with their hands. Back in the 1990s, we didn't understand neighborhood technologies and human technologies the way that we understand them now. What we didn't know then, and if we did know it, then it was only known by a few people and not at all well dispersed, apparently, was that if we moved all trades to the suburbs, if we cleared out cornfields, people will just go from Central City. But in fact, the technologies of neighborhoods, particularly those within poverty, are very territorial and very narrative and very, very, very pedestrian. And so when you move trades out of Central City and you put it just a stone's throw across that bridge, which is where Owens Community College is, there's nothing about science, anything that you understand about humanity, and there certainly is zero statistic that would back up the idea that if we removed anything from Central City and put it in the middle of a cornfield, that people from Central City will go. Now listen, I'm a city guy, right? I don't understand the country. My wife is from the country. This is what I know about the country. It's very much like I know about my phone in my pocket. I know how to drive through it. That's about it. But when I go to the country, I'm very uneasy about that because I need streetlights. If I'm going to get shot, I need to know who did that, and I'm good, right? Plus, Center City people have seen the movies. We've seen what happens in cornfields. We're not interested. And so it's a vastly different thing. Like country folk don't like coming to the city. City folks really don't like going to the country. We have perceptions about one another. But the reality is, and the history of it is, and all the statistics would bear me out, that every school that's built in a cornfield that was hoping that the Center City populations would follow it has failed miserably. And it's failed miserably in 2 ways. Number one, no one gets it, right? So you have these really high density, high diverse neighborhoods that aren't going to a cornfield, and you cannot incentivize them, not to the level where it's sustainable. You can incentivize them, but you cannot incentivize to sustainability, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of incentivization. I am a big fan of respect, and I'm a huge fan of dignity. If we can figure out systems that simply return value back to the individual and help them uncover the value that they are as a human being, then I think that far outweighs anything like a McDonald's or Burger King gift certificate if you participate in this survey. So we know things now. We didn't know them in 1991, but we know them now. And so when we started this project a couple of years ago, we thought it will be a mountain of conversation in order for schools that are in the outlying areas to simply return back to Center City, use the Life Revitalization Center, which was built in the 1930s as a vocational school, closed as a vocational school in 1991, and we would ask those adult colleges, Terra, Northwest State, Owens Community College, to simply take up residency back in Center City, bring accredited college and trades courses back into Center City. Cherry Street will do all the build out. We'll do a build a suit. You come and use this as a satellite location. That simple concept, when I first started it, I thought that'll take a year and a half, maybe 20 months to accomplish. What I was shocked and surprised by was I had them at hello. So it only took like 20 minutes to convince colleges to move back into Center City. So all of those colleges are involved in our project. So Owens is back downtown now. I called Marcy Captain. I go, Marcy Captain, I need you to call over to Owens and start cutting them a break because she's given them such flack about not having any presence in downtown Toledo. And I would say in some ways, rightly so, whether you get to where you get there in different ways, you get to the same conclusion. But the reality is these trade schools needed to come back to Center City. High density, high diversity, why wouldn't you? If in fact enrollment is your bottom line, and your bottom line has to do with money, then I would suspect that you would go to a high diversity, high density area. And so they have. It took about 20 minutes, and so here they are. We're now in our second full year of that project, and we can chat about that in the Q&A. That's not really why I'm here. I'm really here to talk to you about what you're looking at on that screen. That's a horse. Now, I know you don't see a horse, and I'm not talking about one of those things where you like look at it at nose level and go all the way back and you're like, oh yeah, a horse, and it has wings. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that when I see that, that might as well be a horse to me. The red are just the blood and the guts, and I'm not entirely sure that what's on that page right now isn't a herd of horses when we're done. Maybe I wanted to start and it was just a horse. But that's chaos. That is absolute chaos. If you're not associated and creating with chaos, you see color, and you've been trained to see beauty for sure, because in that framework is dimension and style and different shapes and different sizes, and the use of color is really, really phenomenal. But when you look at that, in most cases, most people are waiting for that to be something, or they're saying that's it. And what I'm saying to you is that when you start creating chaos, when you start creating social engineering and start to propose social change, that's what you're going to start with right there. Part of that chaos are people that don't want to work together. Part of that chaos are people who have no business working together. And we're going to chat about that tonight, because you need all of them working together, right? Mostly people who have no business working together. And so if you understand basic chaos, then you can understand that definition of the word chaos, which is the state of utter confusion and disorder. Now I'm going to show you a couple of slides. This is very anti-slide metrics. So I'm going to show you a slide that has a lot of text on it, so go easy, it's okay. It's only 2 slides, and then I'll return to the pictures, all right? Remain calm. Just don't be like, oh, the old dude doesn't know not to bring a lot of text to a tech crowd. Yeah, the old dude does, because the old dude doesn't like a lot of text either. Okay, but I did want to write this down because it was far better for me to write it down and show it to you. So confusion and disorder. So I'd like you to look at the underlying words of you and your, whether that's you're going, or you are. I'd like you to pay attention to those in the statement. Confusion and disorder, so that's the definition for chaos. In your work, in your leadership, and in your creation is never minded by you, as long as you're never confused or in a state of disorder about you. You could almost put a period right there. As long as you're never in a state of confusion and disorder about you, because life is a you first proposition. So before you go anticipating that other people are going to change, you probably ought to start with the puzzle that is you. So as long as you're not confused or in disorder about you or what it is you're doing or creating. So as long as you can wrap your hands there, then you're never bothered by a state of confusion and disorder, because you've figured it out. You've said, listen, I know it's utter confusion, and I know I'm creating utter disorder, but I'm not confused, nor am I out of order about what it is that I'm saying to you. And so when I started on this project and I started walking through and dreaming with teams after teams of people, and right now I would say there's probably in the neighborhood of at least 25 teams, both staff and non-paid staff, that are working on this project 7 days a week around the clock. So when I first started with my teams, the very first team that I walked through the building, so Randy Ostra and Bob LeClaire and Lynn Fruth, and I put all the people in the room, and I said to myself, when I put them all in the room, when we walked through that building, there were no lights, there were no ceilings, there was debris everywhere. And what I wanted first course were these community leaders to tell me that I was absolutely insane. I had no business dragging Cherry Street into a 242,000 square foot project, that a high school and vocational and trade school training have nothing to do with an historical rescue mission. It has nothing to do with our wheelhouse, that Dan, you should leave that to somebody else. You should walk away from this. It's ridiculous. By the way, the building was for a song, cost-wise. The building was only $360,000. Now listen, right now it's a $10 million project, and we brought the valuation up from $360 to about $6 million in 4 years. And so when you look at this, first of all, so I walked them into this door, walked them all the way through the building, and walked them out the back door. Now listen, I don't know if you ever walked with these cats, but you really can't hold them that long because they're busy people. By the time I got them back into this parking lot right here, I said to them, hey, gentlemen, I know I've had you here for an hour. You guys have got to go. You've been very gracious for your time. So go ahead. Let me have it. Tell me everything you're thinking about. And these gentlemen looked at me and with quiet reservation said I would be crazy if I didn't do this. I'm like, you are so unhelpful, right? So unhelpful, because this would have been the perfect time to talk chaos out of it, right? Because in order to dream this, in order to think through this, then this is pure chaos. You cannot take a dynamic project like this, or the dynamic projects that you want to create cannot be started with order. They have to be started with disorder, and they have to be started with confusion, because it's completely confusing and completely out of order. Because when you walk through the building with inside of a nanosecond, you say, not only are you going to build this building, not only are we going to recreate this space, not only are we going to reimagine it for adults, but we're going to get every college in the area under the same roof. Now that's just nuts. And we're going to start with employment and work our way in. We're not just going to build a horizontal bridge, we're going to build a vertical bridge, so people don't just get better this way, which is technical and trades training, but they get better this way. So they know how to sustain this. Because I can help you get a job, but my gosh, if you're just going to walk off tomorrow, then all I really did was spend a lot of time helping you fail again. And so when you understand these human technologies, then you think, okay, what's it going to take? And I tell you, it's not going to take order. So here's the second thing, because many people ask me this question. Well, Dan, all good for you, but you hire 85 people and have 2,000 volunteers and all kinds of folks that you're responsible for. What about them, right? And I'm like, exactly, what about them? So I've made a paragraph for them, which is good. And I remind them, here's your paragraph. I'm going to read it for you. Here it is. Chaos is dreadfully minded. I tell my staff all the time, by the way, let me just acknowledge that chaos is dreadfully minded by you. I acknowledge that. So chaos is dreadfully minded by those around you in whom you depend to be both a critical part of the confusion and disorder. So I need these really orderly, unconfused people to join me in this really scatterbrained idea and this really scatterbrained organizational chart that we're going to work out, knowing also that they're going to be the solution to the very confusion and disorder. Now listen, you've got to think about what kind of person, right? Hopefully a person that's not having hallucinogenic flashback is willing, who has order and lack of confusion, who actually understand projects from beginning to end, who have a master's degree in business administration. They're my favorite, by the way, my absolute favorite. Hey, Dan, do you have an MBA? No, but I know how to say it. There you go. That's as close as it gets, right? So a master's of business administration, people who know project handling from front to back. These are people that need a plan. These are people that need less of chaos and disorder and less of confusion and a lot more answers. And so I'm asking all of them to step into this picture here and not bring order to it. That's the key, is not bring any order to this. Order will come. Order and lack of confusion is more of an outcome than it is a goal. And you have to be willing to slow your heart rate down and slow the way that you think and your respirations way down and think, okay, what's it going to take for the long haul? Because if I get in here and I engineer this too meticulously, then it'll look more like landscape than a garden. You guys know the difference between the two, right? So landscape begins with a design, it begins with a plan, and then they bend earth to that plan. Whereas garden is like, let's just plant the dumb things, what happens? Right? You can tell, by the way, which one I enjoy. Okay, my wife is here 40 years. Hello, Crystal. Right? Listen, if you really want to know the other side of this equation, you can spend 10 minutes with Crystal. She'll tell you everything you need to know. By the way, Crystal is of German descent. I don't know if you know anything about Germans, but they're the very exact opposite of chaos. And so she has brought a lot of patience and a lot of perseverance into our relationship because of the vast differences between us. Someone asked me the other day, do you and your wife pursue agreement? And I said, no, absolutely, we don't believe in pursuing agreement. We think agreement is an entirely too fluid of a concept. What my wife and I, though, do well is we pursue alignment. We're going to be in constant disagreement. I mean, for crying out loud, we landed in Atlanta about 2 hours ago, from Atlanta about 2 hours ago. We were in complete disagreement about whether she should stop and go to the restroom. Complete disagreement. Who wants to vote who won that one? Yeah, the Germans, right? They're going to invade Poland. You're going to just let them go to the restroom. It's okay. So you're asking people around you, whether they work for you or whether they're good friends of you, they've got your back in some way. They have personal investment in you in some way. They have a stake in you. They have stake in the outcome of what's going on. And frankly, they're in love with you. They care about you. And they want you to succeed and not fail in their watch. Secondarily, they would like not going down the drain either as well. And so what I've asked my teams throughout the years is this is what it looks like. Try your best not to touch it. Try your best to live within sight of it. So at what rate, at what level can you deal with chaos? And when you take your days off, and when you take time off, and when you utilize the personal time that I afford you, as both your friend and your employer, are you using it wisely? Because when you go away from here, I literally need you to go away, right? So don't go away and think about this, because I need you to recover. One of the things I love doing is helping people recover faster, because people right now in America today, on humanity, recover at an entirely too slow of a rate. People can, listen to me, you can recover fast, you can learn how to recover faster. That's a whole nother show, Nate. I'll come back and do that one. But right now, we're talking about chaos. Okay, so those things are true. I'm going to share with you 5 principles that I think are worthy of attention. Principle number one, I've learned how to be blind and deaf to the right things. People fail when they see and hear everything around them. And you have to learn whether you're a person of chaos or a person of order. It won't matter. This is completely transferable to you across a broad range of leadership styles. Effective leaders and effective community leaders and effective people in general, effective people that can put people around them to do amazing things, simply have a whole list of things that they are completely blind to and deaf to, and it's by choice. Now listen, you may have never written that list, but I guarantee you as a human being, you are blind to some things, right? As a matter of fact, you have people pointing it out to you all the time, like, didn't you see that car coming? No, I'm blind to cars. Can't you see that as a problem? No, I can't see it as a problem. But until you start seeing that competency as a natural part of your wiring and then make that natural part of your wiring work for you, you're going to try to stop being blind and deaf to certain things, and you're going to start trying to be seeing and hearing to all things. People who see and hear everything and determined to see and hear everything are the equivalent in my mind as a beach ball. You guys understand beach balls? Anybody ever try to spike the ball with a beach ball? Anybody? No? You should try it. What happens? You can hit it with all the force, but what happens? No, it just looks at you like, don't you understand? I'm a freaking beach ball. You can hit me, you can shoot me out of a cannon, and I'm still going to do this. Boop. And so people that seek to see everything and hear everything are a lot like that, because you have too much roundness. You need a few more sharper edges. So I'm going to ask you to think about the things that you are naturally inclined to be blind to. I'm going to give you 2 of the things that I'm blind and deaf to. First of all, I'm completely blind to the scale of the problem. Completely. Now, sometimes that's by choice, but I've also noticed that that's also a part of my wiring. Like, I don't calculate how big that problem is. And so people ask me all the time. As a matter of fact, I think people ask me a lot less. Like, if people ask me now, I just met them. Right? Like, Dan, don't you see how big a problem that is? Like, I must have met you 5 minutes ago, but people who know me don't even ask me the question anymore. They ask each other, hey, we just came out of that meeting. Does Dan understand the trouble we're in? You know what they say? No, he doesn't, and you're going to have to get past that. Well, don't you think we ought to go back in and tell Dan how big of a problem this is? And they say, yes, we should, but it'll do no good because he's blind to scale of problem. Now, that's me. This is a personal example. I am not asking anyone to have that. But I'm wondering tonight, what is it that you're blind to? What is the thing that you just absolutely refuse to see, even when people point it out to you? Like, okay, you're not understanding me. It's elephants with big tusks, and they hate you. And all of you's like you. Yeah, I can't see it. Like, that's a hoarding. Are you telling me it's a hoarding elephant? Is what you're telling me? Yeah, and there's like 40 of them. Yeah, I don't see it. Okay, right? So I don't, by the way, for those of you that like Return of the King, this has got to be a little jolly for you, right? Because I don't know who for you has ever mixed the Minions and the Lord of the Rings, but there you go. Two classics clashing right here at Code City. So I'm completely blind to how large the scale of the problem is, and I'm completely deaf to this word. I cannot hear it. I've tried hearing it. I've tried hearing it in various languages. In most languages, it's still no. I don't know if you've ever noticed this or not, but I mean, that's how simple the word no is, right? Unless you're in Russia, then it's niet. But that sounds so much like no, you don't even need a translation. I cannot hear the word no. And so for the Life Revitalization Center, I've had my team calculate how many no's did I get from the day that we purchased this building to the day we opened the cafe, not more than 8 weeks ago. Last count, it was about 125. And I mean not like a little no's, I mean like critical no's. Like, hey, we're going to open in May 2017. No, we're not. And you know who's saying no, we're not? Engineers. They have an attitude. I don't know if you've ever met an engineer. They really feel like they know what they're talking about. And then architects. Architects like you Druids, I get it. I suppose you have a lot of authority to tell me no. And I would listen to you if I could hear you. But I cannot hear you. And then you got the construction workers involved. Oh my gosh, they're the most adamant because they're big. And they're telling you no. And it's not just one construction worker. They bring the project manager in, the guy with the hammer, and the guy with the backhoe. And they're also, because they didn't think you heard them the first time, so they went and got reinforcements, right? And now they just look like this to me, right? They just look like that to me with a no, right? So the horde is telling me no. And I'm like, I know in your world that sounds like a lot of no, but I still can't hear it. But Dan, there's no way it can open May 2017. Alicia, what day did we open? Yeah, man, May 2017. Why? Because I cannot hear it. And so you've got to think about what are the things that you're deaf to. You'll all have things you're deaf to, but I wonder oftentimes if you celebrate them enough as much as you should. Because if you're going to create chaos and certainly embrace chaos and create it, I mean really create chaos in other people's lives and at the expense of other organizations and other ideas, then you're going to have to come to the table with a whole list of things you're not willing to see and a whole list of things you're not willing to hear. And when you can do that, interesting things happen. You're going to love this because this is Code City, right? And so code, I guess, someone tells me, Nate, is a series of O's and ones. Am I right? Binary, right? So the reason why I put that up there is because you and I are living right now in a very binary world with binary ideas. And every single day, in my estimation, we're losing ground on the artful conversations that we need to be having. We're losing ground just personally about things that we're not allowed to talk about because if I talk about it, I'm going to be shoved in one corner or the other. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to be in both camps on any one topic all the time. But you're not living in a world that lets you be in both topics at the same time. You have to be one or you have to be the other. Religion is very much a binary conversation right now. All kinds of things, even race, is a binary discussion. Nobody can just sit and have an honest conversation about, listen, I don't think I am, but I struggle with. Because if you struggle with, you are. And so I'm not allowed to say I'm not a racist, but I struggle with racist ideology. Because if I say that, then I'm a racist. Because the world is shoving me into a binary discussion. Well, I don't want a binary discussion. And so when you start creating in chaos and you start saying, listen, we're not going to straighten any of this out. We're not going to straighten an ounce of this out. We're just going to live inside of utter confusion and complete chaos to see what is created as an outcome, not a goal, as a garden, not a landscape. What can be created? And so there's tons of ways that you and I can do that. Now, when you think along this line, you'll want to think about, as I participate in creative things within a community, I'm going to have people in that meeting and in that conversation that are going to want to force me into a binary discussion. They're going to say, Dan, you can't do it both ways. You can't have utter confusion and disarray and have order. That's a binary way of looking at things. But what if you could? And I've demonstrated again and again. And by the way, I'm just the guy speaking tonight. I'm hardly the only woman or man that has figured this out. There's tons of people, and you may even be in the room tonight, where you thrive on chaos. Maybe you were born upside down as well. Maybe you were dropped on your head, you were so upside down, as was I. But when you get into these conversations, you're going to come up against this really brick wall of choice. Someone is going to ask you to make a choice about one thing or the other. It's a good thing you're deaf to the word no, because then you'll be like, I would love to hear you, but I can't hear the fact that I can't think both ways. In fact, I can think both ways. I can see merit in both arguments. I understand both, and I can translate between the two worlds. And when you can position yourself in the community where you can make those translations with integrity and with veracity and back it up with lifestyle and emotional content and relational integrity, then trust me, people will give you 5 seconds. And my friends, 5 seconds is all you need. Because you know what 5 seconds buys you in another conversation? 10 more seconds. And you just keep buying those seconds until you get to whatever punctuation comes at the end of whatever conversation you're having. Which, by the way, you should have picked that up. That's like another subset. Try not to put punctuations in conversation. Let them happen. You could want to be having a period conversation. It ends up being an exclamation conversation. And you're like, oh, that seemed to be emotionally out of order. Well, it's because you thought it should have been a period instead of an exclamation mark or a question. How many are hearing that? Number 2, I'd like you to be thinking about getting the term second chances out of your nomenclature. I don't think second chances has anything to do in any healthy way in the human framework, because something desperate happens when you put this framework of second chances inside of you. Because in the moment that you put second chances in there, your brain is already running the math calculus. It's wondering how many more chances are there. And this all happens in a nanosecond. And then your brain reports back to your heart and reports back to your gut and reports back to your emotions that if you don't manage this well and don't do this well, then it's going to end poorly because you've only got so many chances in life. But I have not found this to be true. Again, I'm turning 60 this year. By the way, I think 60 is the new 40. I think 60 is a new 35, which makes me a millennial in so many ways. So there you go. That's how I feel about that. Now, none of that has any basis in genetics, anatomy, or anything else. But, you know, it's fun to say. So I think you've got to take this whole idea that you have so many ups to bats, that you have chances out in front of you. And I'm going to encourage you to remove that term out of your nomenclature, second chances, and then I'm going to ask you to just remove the word chance out of your vocabulary. Because neither one of those terms or the vocabulary works well with humans. Because the moment that you say words like that to me, clocks begin ticking. And human beings are the worst with tick-tock. The worst. If you want to fail, introduce the sound of a clock ticking. Am I right about this? Matter of fact, in addiction, so in the specialties that I've had over my 38 years around this globe, I learned early my clinicals, that just personally I learned it because I watched how people were reacting to what I was talking about. And so I ran tests. This was like 30 years ago. I know, it makes me not a millennial, I get it. So about 30 years ago, I started running tests in my own work. And there was a whole group of people that I ran a test on, people that I continued to allow time to be involved in their rehabilitation, and then an equal number of people where I removed time like they were in Vegas, right? I mean, I pump oxygen into you, and I will take all daylight and clocks out of your life, man. No? You haven't been to Vegas? All right, go to Vegas, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And just remove time out of their life and out of their equation. And I watched the exponential development of the human being that absolutely had removed the tick-tock out of their life. Because something horrible happens to you when you start introducing this word, chance. I'll take another chance. I'll take another risk. I'll take another this. I'll take another that. It's working against you. So just remove that, man. Get off the batter's mound. Stop swinging at whiff balls. This is not baseball, right? You own the freaking stadium. Stop acting like you got a bat in your hand. Is that cool? No? Yes. That's kind of cool. All right, I'll take kind of cool. All right, so remove those words and those, it's working against you. And this is my fave. I've done this a lot, and I've done it exponentially to almost a fine-tuned degree over the last 2 years. I've always played with this idea of redefining the word collaboration in the definition I just gave you in my opening, which is collaboration should only be defined by groups of people who have zero business working together. Unfortunately, in our society, we seek collaborations of like-minded individuals. We seek like kinds of work. We're looking for puzzle pieces where all the sides match. We're blue, and we're looking for another blue. And then we get several blues. Anybody ever done a puzzle? No. Okay, so this is a really rough crowd. Because this crowd's like, is this a puzzle? Is that a puzzle? No, that's not a puzzle. It's like a puzzle, but all the pieces match. All right, use your imagination, will you please? Something on the table, 1,000 pieces, all puzzles. It's a landscape, right? A beautiful green meadow and luscious blue skies. How many have the picture in their minds, right? Okay. So you can imagine in a 1,000-piece puzzle, like 575 are blue. Blue, right? And so I'd like you to think about that for a moment. When you develop collaborations and you start working from that framework, and you start looking for people that might agree with you, and you start looking for people that are like in kind with you or in step with you or of the same idea, framework with you, same competency, same class of work with you, then trust me, you're just a bunch of blue hanging around just making more blue. Now, you can call that innovative if you want, but guys like me are going to stand across the street going, you know, all they did was create blue. That's good blue right there. I'll take that blue all day long. I'll go across the street, you give me 16 ounces of your new blue. That's not innovation, that's just, you know, working together. Does that have value? Absolutely. You got a ton of blue to work together and make like blue. You shouldn't confuse that as too terribly horrible, but you should hear my sarcasm as well. So you should be thinking, who can I go? I'm going to write a list of people on the board that do this every single day in the community to one another. They're natural enemies. They don't work well together. They have no business working together. And when you put them in the same world, then they get all riffy and wondering, why are you making me sit with these folks? Because I believe that that's true collaboration. When you have people working together that have no business working together, and so when we started putting this kitchen together, we reached out to Connecting Kids to Meals, Wendy Huntley's group, right? By the way, Connecting Kids to Meals, the most aptly named nonprofit in the world. Hey, I wonder what they do. Oh, I'll tell you, they connect kids to meals. Those to them, that's what they do. It's absolutely aptly named, and they don't do anything else. No, I'm not kidding. Like, you don't have to wonder what is Connecting Kids to Meals to do when they're not connecting kids to meals. I'll tell you what they do. They go home. Because when they're in our building, they connect those to them. We have no business working with those folks on many, many planes, right? First of all, 100% federally funded. Cherry Street in our system, we abhor anything that isn't privately supported by the community. 100%. We receive no federal dollars, no state dollars, no tax dollars. We figure, listen, if you're philanthropic, you've paid for me once. I'm not going to ask you to pay for me twice with your taxes. I'm cool. Y'all want to do it. It's okay. If you receive government dollars, then God bless you. I'm just telling you, it's not good for us, right? So our monies don't mix. Our framework doesn't mix. We're 100% adult. They're 100% kids. They're 100% fairly funded. They're very sterile, very antiseptic, very by the book. Because they have to be, because the Department of Agriculture actually has a desk in their facility 40 hours a week. Department of Agriculture. I don't know if you've ever met anybody from that group, but they're not fun. They're not fun. You think agriculture, oh, fun. Farmers market, bananas, apples. No. These people, I don't think I've ever seen vegetables. Right? They're not a fun bunch. We have no business working together. But 3 years ago, we formed an alliance. It was quiet, it was powerful, it was dynamic. It took us a year to just come up with all the language. And then 7 more months once we turned it over to the attorneys, who were half of the no's that I got on that project alone. And no business working together. Raised $3.5 million together and opened that guy on time and under budget. And we're still working together, right? We have no business even today working together. Every time we sit and chat, it's oil and water, man. I got to get out just shaker. We got to shake it all back up because I'm out of these people's office for 20 minutes and we separate, right? But true collaborations are best built and best engineered with people that you don't have a natural proclivity to work well together. As long as you appreciate this, and I hope you hear this carefully, will always be your state of relationship. Don't ever expect that to get any better. I'm not a big fan of peacekeeping. I'm a big fan of peacemaking, though. And so if every single day, you want to drop kick my briefcase, then we're going to stay there until we make peace. Because there is no peace to keep. We have no business working together. What about that? Then you get, right? Don't expect these partnerships to fall in love and to change their ideology and to change the way that they're wired and change the way that they think. As a matter of fact, you don't want that to happen. You don't want that homogenous thing to happen. You want those sharp edges always there. Because if you have those sharp edges always there, you have chaos. And if you're chaos, you can create stuff. Because it's volatile, and it's wonderful, and it's really colorful, and it freaks people out. And I don't know if you know this or not, but people secretly like being freaked out. They do, right? Hey, you want to go to Cedar Point? Yeah. Do you like roller coasters? I really don't. You want to ride the big one? Yeah. Do you like the really big one? No, I don't. Why are we riding it? I don't know, right? because we secretly desire that drop, that edge that comes with us. And then lastly, before I talk about social engineering, lastly, I'm a big fan of creating new understanding around tired words. And so I'm wondering if in some time in your near future, if you could just start engineering new understandings around tired words. Because all of the words that I have up here are all words that I've engineered new understanding around. You know, like poverty and homelessness and compassion. All of these words right now in the United States, like hunger, are all tired. And you know how you know a word is tired? When no one is thinking any new thoughts. We've given up. We've created a truce. I mean, forget President Johnson declaring the war on poverty 52 years ago, man. I got to tell you, we gave up on that a long time ago. It's now a truce on poverty, right? And so these are very, very tired things, and when we think about them, we get very, very tired. I have comrades every single day, and I mean comrades, people I've started stuff with. I was having breakfast with one of my best comrades of the last 20 years. Over breakfast, we sat there for an hour and just about ripped each other's face off because he doesn't agree with me, which is just a big mistake, right? Big mistake, right? Because while you're out gallivanting and doing stuff, I'm thinking, right? And he and I are absolutely diametrically opposed to this one simple idea that homelessness can end. No, homelessness can never end. Oh my gosh. What? I got simple math for you. Anything that you could track to a start, you can track to an end. These are just things that we've grown up with. We weren't there when it started. All of us weren't there when it started 89 years ago. We weren't there. None of us were there, not in this room. We're there in 1921 when America one day woke up for the first time in 1921 and realized that the whole nation might be poor. Not anywhere in our history before 1921 had we ever even thought about it. By the early 1930s, we were deeply embroiled in the Dust Bowl, and now the Great Depression, and then World War II, and then returning veterans that went as 16-year-olds were shell-shocked, and now they're coming back and populating central city areas all across our nation called Skid Rows. This has all happened on our watch, but none of us were there when it happened. But we can track back to the day that it did. And so if it did, then all we have to do is track back from that day, learn our lessons, bring that information forward, and end things. All right, those are 5 principles that I hope that will be meaningful to you as you leave here tonight. Now I just want to turntable just for a minute and give you 4 things that I'd like you to think about with respect to engineering. That's my friend wondering why I'm talking about him, and he knows Alicia's number. Here's something that I hope you'll take about when you start thinking about social engineering. By the way, just show of hands, how many of you are right now presently involved in or are interested in actually bringing about and leading social change and social engineering? Show me your hands. Okay, great. I'm in a fantastic row. Rule number 1, figure out your relationship capital and get it working together. What is your relationship capital? Because when I started the Life Revitalization Center, I got to tell you something. For 2 years, I spent my capital like a fiend. I went to people that I had built solid gold into our relationship. I had handed them solid projects. I never gave them a reason not to trust me. I never turned them down. Never didn't show up in the middle of the night when they called on me. Never, ever, ever did I ever turn my back on them. That I had gold in the bank with them, and I went to them and I said, I need you involved in this project. And they would say, no, I can't be involved in this project. And then I would open up the bank and I would say, but I have gold with you and I'm here to take a withdrawal. I would use words just like this. I'm not speaking metaphorically. This is exactly how I talk to my friends. I have gold in your bank, and I have zero ink on your ledger, which means I'm not in debt to you in any way. I've not disappointed you on any level. I've always handed you solid. And so you and I have capital right now, and I'm going to spend every ounce of my capital that I have with you on this project. And your friends, the people that you have built solid gold relationship with you, they'll do it. You do it. You do it every single day. People that have trust with you and no ink on your ledger, they've never let you down, they come to you. You know, the Bible calls that a friend at midnight, man. And I believe that you all need to have what I refer to always as dead body friends. You know those are, right? Those are people you can call at 2 o'clock in the morning, remove a dead body out of your living room, and they won't ask any questions. I love those people. I am not suggesting at all that you put a dead body or live or behave in such a way that a dead body would actually be in your living room. But if, in fact, it happens, we all need this. So number one, build it, first of all. And certainly, if you want to be involved in social engineering, particularly social engineering that actually is going to create chaos for a while, you're going to present ideas that are going to absolutely socially disrupt the status quo. You're going to bring new definitions to tired words. You're going to bring about new understanding. Then trust me, before you ever get there, you better have put some gold in people's banks. And when you have gold in people's banks, you go to them and tell them, I got gold in your bank and I'm making a withdrawal. You're going to need a truck for this one. I told this one guy, yeah, you're going to need to bring your pickup truck because, man, I'm taking all of it. Man, you can't take all of it, dude. I'm taking everything. So much so that if this fails, I would have lost you as a friend. That's what it means to me. And so I'm coming to make a withdrawal. I have put it, I have money on deposit with you, my friend. But listen, you can't make a withdrawal from someone in whom you have not invested. That's called debt. That's called putting ink on somebody else's ledger. And now you're borrowing. Are you guys hearing any of this? You're borrowing instead of withdrawing, and there's a big difference between those two things. Because when you borrow relationship capital from someone, even though you're a friend, you're starting to pay the VIC plus the point. So trust me, you'll be paying that off for a long time. Better yet, don't put yourself in that situation. Start now if you haven't already done it, and start building solid gold in the lives of people. That's number one thing. Number two, allow your enemies. This is the one that really gets people, man, when I tell them this. They don't like it. Allow your enemies to develop naturally. People don't like that, man. We live in a world where we don't want enemies. I got a question for you, man. What do you mean you don't want an enemy? Of course you want an enemy. Your enemy is the reason why your head is on the swivel when you're out in the Serengeti. That's called Toledo, by the way. Why your head is always on a swivel. It is your enemy, not your friends, that make you the sharpest. But let them develop naturally. Don't go out there and start making enemies. That's stupid. And when I say let your friends develop naturally, let your enemies develop naturally, you all right now have a list of people right now that are not kind to you and are enemies against what it is you're thinking of, enemies against what it is you're doing. The tendency in humanity is to go to the person at Rust Belt and try to have coffee and try to get them to be friends with you. I've had conversations with my enemies right at this table at Rust Belt. Thank you, Rust Belt. For only one purpose, to make sure that they understood why they were my enemy. Now listen, have a seat. We got coffee. How's your mom, your dad? You good? Everybody good? Now let me tell you why you're my enemy. Oh, Dad, man, I am not sure to make you my enemy. Please, you're my enemy. Here are the ways I can demonstrate that you're my enemy. But I want you to be a healthy enemy to you. I don't want you to be a weak enemy to me. I want you to understand that if you're going to be an enemy, I want you to understand why you're an enemy. And by the way, you can hear this. I'm not speaking metaphorically. This is how I talk to people. But you have got to let it naturally develop. Don't make enemies. Trust me, your work will create enough. But when you start seeing these hooded guys start showing up on your doorstep, then trust me, man, let it start happening naturally. Let it evolve naturally. Some people flip over time. I've had people that were my enemies, and as a natural course of time, they came back. I had this one guy when I was hired as a chief executive officer, he was diametrically opposed to me. And he said to me after I got hired, he goes, Dan, he goes, did you hear what the vote was? How brass this guy was, right? Did you hear what the vote was? I go, no, man. His name is Mike. No, man, I didn't hear what the vote was. He goes, it was 16-1. He's like this. He's proud. He's like, I was the one. I voted against you. He goes, you're not the right person for this job. This was 2005. You're not the right person for this job. You're going to make this organization fail. And I hope it doesn't happen, but you're the completely wrong person for this organization. And 1 year later, almost to the day, had the courage to come back to me and go, man, hey, Dan, I'm wrong, completely wrong. You are not the wrong guy. You're the right guy. I was wrong. Mea culpa. I want to be friends. Now, he and I and his wife and my wife were friends. We go to Florida all the time with them. They're great people. I mean, I sincerely call them my friends. These things can flip. But if it's going to happen naturally, one way or the other, then let it happen naturally. Listen now, try not to put your hands on your enemies. They're there for a reason. But be clear about it and be clean about it. And don't be sided about it. It's got to be one of the things you just got to be blind to. Like, I can see you're my enemy, but I'm blind to your effect. I don't want to understand the scope of your problem with me. I don't want to understand the scale by which you could cause me problems. I'm just going to be blind to that entire thing. But my friend, I'm not blind to you. So let your enemies evolve and develop naturally. Don't be afraid of enemies. It's okay. They'll work for you, right? Like, I really don't care if my friend or enemy eventually going to work for me, so I'm good either way. I'm kind of being a smart aleck. I don't think everybody works for me. Not really. Okay. I like this image because I don't like attending meetings. And I don't like the whole idea of people attending meetings. But I do like this idea. Learn how to infiltrate and insert yourself. Learn how to infiltrate groups. Like, I'm on a couple of boards. If I'm on a board, it's not because I'm friends with the executive. I'm on a board because there's something about that organization that is necessary to the work that I do. And so I'm going to infiltrate and insert. I'm going to insert and infiltrate for two reasons. Number one, I want to influence from within, right? So if I think you got a cockamamie idea about things, then I'm just going to be the one person in the room that's like, hey, that was cockamamie. And we had to change our minds about that. And then people are like, hey, who's the new guy? You know, that he should be telling us that we're cockamamie. I go, I don't know. You voted me in, so you have bigger mental issues than I can afford. And so we have little conversations like that, and we go on, right? So I'm there to infiltrate and insert myself so that I can influence right behavior and right ideas. But I'm also there to intel gather. So what's the intelligence that needs to be gathered for the work at hand? And so, for example, I'm on the Uptown board, which is just right down the road, Julie Champa, right? Cherry Streets, all of our work is inside the Uptown. It's important that I'm on that board. But there are members of the Uptown that are prejudiced against homeless people. And they think homeless people are the worst things on the planet. And so I sit on that board not because I think we do great work. I sit on that board to continue to keep that whole idea that you've got to move off this whole label thing and just realize that people are people, right? Like, look, homeless people in the park. Wait, let me see if I heard that right. I get a call. You think this is my daily work, right? I get a call, hey, Dan, homeless people are in the park. I'm like, oh, my God, homeless people are in the park. Well, whatever will we do? Because when I look over there at the park, I just see people in the park. Yeah, but they're loitering. I go, yes, but that's what parks are for. Like, the definition of park is come loiter. If we can't loiter at a park, then what the hell is a park for there, right? Like, a park is there for us to drive through it, I guess. No, Parks invite you to come loiter, but then they're loitering. Then they put up a sign, no loitering, in a park. They put up a sign, no loitering. I took a picture. I mailed it to the mayor. Hey, mayor, guess what's happening in your fantastic city? We don't want people loitering in the park. What shall ever we do? My goodness. So I'm in these conversations to influence, but I'm also there to infiltrate and gather intel. So when you go to meetings like this, figure out which one of those people you are and be there not because you like the idea, though that's bonus, right? Not because you think you can bring about good work, that's bonus as well. Not because you can be a part of a consortium of people that are collaborating around an idea and bringing all kinds of energies and ideas to the table. Listen, if you can do that, that's bonus, right? But be there because you know what your purpose on this planet is. Be there because you own your space. Be there because you've thought about words that you're bringing new definition and understanding to tired old things. Be there because you want to gather intel, and be there because you want to influence from within, because you believe you have something of substance to bring about influence with. Because that's you. You're valuable. And then this is my last point, and we can open up for some Q&A. I think you've got to know the difference in sailing terms between the word hunker and the word batten. So those are sailing terms. When you hit a storm, those are the two things that all sailors do, or all people who can afford a boat do, right? Because when a storm comes, you're out in the middle of any kind of a body of water, you really only have two choices. I know you want a third choice. There isn't one. You have two choices. You can hunker. Hunker down is a phenomenal and excellent choice. These are not hierarchical. One is not better than the other. If you hunker down, it's because you have found safe harbor and you're gonna weather out the storm, right? So you're gonna find safe harbor, you're gonna hunker down, and you're gonna let the storm pass. That is a phenomenal sailing choice. The other choice is batten, which is the term used for small strips of wood, where those small strips of wood get screwed onto the boat deck in critical places so the boat doesn't fall apart. Because if you choose batten, batten means you're going to sail through the storm, which is also a phenomenal choice. You're not going to hunker down, but you're going to batten down. And you're going to build all hands on deck, and you're going to sail through the storm, and you're not going to let it change your course. Now, but here's the critical mass, you guys. Do you have battens? Some people batten down the thing, try to sail from a storm, but they have nothing to screw anything to. And so they sail through a storm because they're what? Highly emotional about positive thinking. Okay. You and the storm are going to have a really interesting conversation, going to end in pieces. You, not it. And so if you try to sail through a storm and you don't have the hands to put on deck, you've not built your relationship capital, you've not really thought about the competencies that are necessary to continue to create and merge your way through chaos, then you're making a wrong choice. It's a perfectly good choice, but you've got to have the hands on deck and the battens to do it. If you don't, hunker, right? Get out of the storm, get over here, let that storm pass, because there's no reason for you or your ideas or anything else to get dashed on the rocks. Please, then do that. They're both phenomenal choices, but wise leaders know the difference. Wise leaders know when it's time to just take this whole thing and move it over there and let whatever's happening happen. Or they know that they've got the capital that is necessary to get the job done, and they do that. Okay, those are the 5 principles that I wanted to share with you today about chaos, and the 4 things that I think you could do if you wanted to bring about social engineering. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, honestly.